Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sledgehammers in the Office podcast, where we celebrate the heavy hitters on the job site and in the office. Today, things look a little different. Mason had some stuff to take care of at his house, so we're trying something new, and hopefully it works, and it does see the light of day, and I'm not bursting everything if it doesn't. So, Mason's at home, and then we've got Alex von Reich here. So, we're going to jump into, boys, what did we do last month?
All kinds of stuff.
Not much, man.
And goodbye, Mason.
And you've been booted from the call. We're just going to mute Mason for the rest of the podcast. You know, you just see his mouth moving, but no sound's going to come out. Very useful. Exactly. What'd you do, Mason?
I just got back from Happy Jack up north. I'll tell you what, I'm definitely over the heat.
Oh, yeah.
Spending 3 days where the high is like 75 and 50s at night. I'm like, yeah, it's about time. I'm over it.
Right.
But it was fun. We just stayed at a friend's cabin, and the kids flew paper airplanes. We played football. Well, not really. We played catch and try to teach the kids football. My shoulder's a little sore from throwing that puppy around.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, you guys will figure that out once you're in your 30s.
Dude, I already have an inexplicable body pain. You know, I don't. I'm 1 year away, so it's already.
What else did I do? Oh yeah. Well, hopefully I fixed my wife's AC in her car.
Nice.
She hasn't had AC in a couple of days, so we'll see after this podcast. When I finish putting it in, I'll let you know next podcast if it worked or if I had to take it in.
Yeah, or you know, just cool down enough that you don't have to worry about it for a little while.
That would be ideal, but you know that won't happen.
Yeah, true. Yeah, no, other than that, on my side, I had a entire week where I'd had no kids, no wife. I was empty nester. It was super weird. I got to sleep in a lot. It was great. But no, I missed everyone. It was good to see them back. And by the time my son came back, he was pretty much walking at this point. Today he's been running around, throwing a basketball around, all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty wild how much stuff changes quickly.
So he goes out of town and comes back walking.
Yeah, well, pretty much. I'm like, his teeth are coming out. I'm like, did you swap him out for another baby? Like, what happened?
Dude, that's when they start. Like you're grateful that they start walking, but then they never want to sit down, and they go everywhere.
No, he gets like super frustrated if he falls down or anything right now because he's like,
I
think like 17 steps or something without falling. Like, and he's like picking up a full size basketball and like throwing it down the whole time. He loves it. He's having a great time.
Just wait till next time you go to a restaurant.
Yeah, I'm not ready for that. Buckle him in or something's like, no, you're not moving.
Yeah.
My niece at church, after church, she loved to just run around and run through all the pews and stuff like that.
Oh.
So my brother's constantly just having to walk around trying to make sure she's not causing havoc, running outside or anything like that.
Yeah.
So.
Nice. What about you? What have you been up to?
I looked back at my calendar this month, and it's been just a lot of work for the most part. I was looking to see, I was like, I thought I did something fun, and it was just like work appointments. And I was like,
that's
fun. But for the most part, it's been just getting stuff ready for the baby. Baby's room's done. Got the car seat put in last night, just so that if we need to go, we're all ready.
Yeah.
We've got our go bag all packed and all that stuff. So
are you going to give social media a little tour of the nursery?
I probably should. I might even just post it on the Sido page just to be like, here's what we did, because people have seen it and they've liked it. So this is my third podcast, I think, in 2 weeks, essentially. And the guy who was on last week, that'll be coming out here in a little bit. I planned it to where we pre-recorded it so I can release it after the kid gets here. But I showed him it. He's like, dude, try to take a picture. I was like, sure. So people they liked it so far. So I'm like, all right, nice. So, but then I helped put a house under contract. Mason, you could probably talk more about that later. But yeah, that's been this last month. I felt like I didn't get a lot done this last month. And then when I looked at my schedule, I was like, all right, we were still moving. So I was happy about that.
Yeah, I was about to say, you'll get your first referral check.
Yeah.
You know, that it already paid for itself. Now you just got to send me some more. We can get the ball rolling.
I want to be your lead source. Yeah. Cool. And then right now we're on baby watch. So essentially it's just due dates Saturday, which this is Labor Day. So depending on when this comes out, if it comes out,
you might be a full-blown dad at that point.
yeah. So
he already is a full-blown dad.
True.
And then I've got something that my wife gave the approval on that I want to do for the announcement of the baby on Instagram. I'm going to do it. You can do the close friends or the story posting just to everyone. I'm going to do it just to close friends, but I'm going to take a picture with the baby and say, welcome to the world, Andrew Tate Klaus, just to see if that pisses anyone off. And then give it like a couple hours and then post the real story to everyone with like his name and like, hey, baby's here, all that stuff.
You're telling me you're not, for a joke name, you're not calling your kid Santa Claus?
Oh, you got one. It's an easy one.
I was like, that one is so easy.
But it's too easy that everyone's gonna know. I want the phone call. I want the text message. Did you really name your kid Andrew Tate? And just be like, yeah, why not? And it is literally just to bother people. That's it.
You don't want to go like Vladimir Wilhelm. It's like all the names.
Joseph Putin.
Yeah. You know, that's or like, you know, World Peace Clause or something like that.
Exactly.
People name very interesting names.
Yeah.
Khaleesi.
Yep. So
Khaleesi?
Yeah, Khaleesi.
Yeah.
Like from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Why not just that'd be just Dragon Claws.
Dragon Claws.
From Step Brothers. You can call me Dragon. You can call me Pretty Talk.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Is it weird talking to a screen?
Yeah, it's also weird because I'm looking down, but the camera's up there.
Yeah.
No, and your guys' eyes are perfectly at my crotch.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
That works.
Thank God there's a desk in the way.
Yeah. Can't tell if you're staring or if you're squinting.
A little bit of both.
All right, let's get into the business side. But before we do, this is going to be a total impromptu ad for Shamrock Farms.
Okay.
So I was working today. I get a phone call from Mason. He's not going to be able to make it. He needs to go get his compressor for his wife's car. And then
condenser.
Whatever. And I knew that I was running late as is, and what I hadn't done was buy my Shamrock Farms. So I called Alex to say, hey, I'm going to be a little late. I'll tell you when I'm leaving. Did I tell him when I was leaving? No. I told him when I was close enough to the store to be able to still beat him to my house because I needed that good old Shamrock Farms chocolate milk for the podcast. And that's why we're enjoying every tasty sip of it because we've been getting after it today. And with all that stress, we need a little something to take the edge off.
There you go. Love it. Love it.
I really hope that someone figures out that we've been plugging them every single time.
Yeah, why would they do anything different than like we get free publicity for the last however many years?
Yep. But all right, Alex, you want to kick us off this month? I think technically it's Mason's turn, but since he's on the video,
yeah, he's pretty lame. Yeah, so
Sorry.
no, you're fine. So I mean, it's pretty uninteresting for the most part.
You never say that.
It's pretty interesting for the most part. So I've been following the same process as before. On average, a lot of things have been ramped up. So beginning of August, I was starting a lot of this stuff. So I was ramping up my cold email. I was ramping up my LinkedIn. I've now been doing essentially like all those reach outs or that funnel for about a month now. So I've sent about 400 connection requests on LinkedIn. Of all of those, I've gotten a decent amount of responses. One person's been interested, and I actually have my first sales call on Wednesday. So yeah, super excited about that / nervous. The cold email campaign has been ramping up. It's a little bit slower just because I've been adding other accounts. And when you turn on the accounts and you start sending it out, you're supposed to be like send 1 email a day, then 2 email days. And then after you do that for like 7 days, you're sending out 7 emails a day. You finally get to start incrementing by 5 until you get to like a max of anywhere between 30 and 60 emails a day. So the goal is to eventually be sending out upwards of like 10,000 emails a month, but I'm still dialing in a lot of the cold email stuff. So no real responses from the cold email, but I think part of that is due to the lead list that I got. I don't think it was necessarily specific enough because a lot of the people that I have like, hey, unsubscribe, don't look at me. I look up their website and I'm like, yeah, okay, these are like regular real estate agents. These are people who would not be able to benefit really from my service. So that's been really interesting. Yeah, and that's the majority of where things are at right now. Nothing much else has been happening. It's just kind of been plugging away.
Well, you did mention that there was a difference too with your target audience that you were going.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I would say as a whole, I've learned a lot just from my research process and everything like that, especially with LinkedIn. You're trying to do roughly 20 to 25 connection requests a day. You're looking up a lot of people. And just last Thursday, I switched up some of my criteria. I'd been doing people from like 200 to 500 employees as a whole. And I started targeting like 500 employees and up, and noticed one, it was a lot easier to kind of find out information about their company. So I look at like job postings and looking to see if they're hiring accounting or anyone in finance, because they'll usually say like, oh, we prefer experience if you have experience with this software, the one that I'm trying to help with.
Or if they're 6'5",
or if we prefer a junior analyst with 10 years of experience, that kind of stuff.
No, 6'5", blue eyes.
6'5", blue eyes, trust fund.
Yep.
All that stuff. But that's been really helpful. So I switched last Thursday to the bigger group, and I actually had a lot more connection requests accept on in that group. So I think now that targeting that group is going to be much more effective, hopefully.
What was your the size that you were targeting before?
Before I was targeting anywhere from like 201 to 500 employees, but LinkedIn isn't really great. Like those filters don't necessarily apply. So if you're doing like revenue targets or like company size, sometimes there were people like plus or minus by a considerable amount. Sometimes there were companies with 13 employees in that bucket. There were sometimes people with 600 employees in that bucket. So it's not the best. And the frustrating part is if you're trying to do like commercial real estate, they only have one industry filter for that, and that's just real estate. So that could be anything from Mason to people being brokerages to like actual commercial real estate companies. So wading through the water is kind of tricky with a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. And how many, when you're sending out the connection requests, how many were accepting it on like a weekly or daily basis or whatever it was?
So on a daily basis of 20 to 25 reach outs, most of the time I would average about 3 connection requests accepted the next day. The big jump was when I did that Thursday reach out, then I had 8 people accept. So that's a pretty big jump. So I don't know if that trend will keep going on, but it can also like timing. But also I think I'm starting to hit like much more specific targets now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, and I know that we were talking, I think it was on Saturday about that with just the percentage jump that you have on that.
Yeah.
It's now you have just a wider pool to go from. Not only that, but with the larger company, those are people who have larger budgets to handle that, bringing on a consultant along with understanding the value of it rather than having to be working with a smaller company and hard selling the reason why you'd be able to come in and help them out. It's more like, oh yeah, we know what you do. Like, just come do your thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And then move on.
Yep.
Cool. Revenue or anything for the month?
Nope. 0.
Okay. Mason, what do you got?
What? I'm joking.
Everything.
What do you want to know?
Let's start with industry specific. Let's hit our stats.
Yep, stats are about the same. 13,500 active homes, just over 1,000 a week are closing. So that's on par for the past freaking 6 months now.
Which
and
dropped just a little bit, huh?
What was that?
That dropped just a little bit. We've usually been hovering around 1,200.
Like closed homes?
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a couple weird weeks this week where there were like 1 week we only had like 900. 1 week was like 700. And then this past week we had almost 1,400. So it kind of averaged out over the last month.
Okay.
So, then interest rates are below 6.5, which is good. They're kind of right now teeter-tottering. I think a couple of days ago it was like 6.39, but I think they're still slowly going down, which is good.
Cool.
Yeah. We'll see how much further it goes as we get closer to election.
Yeah.
In that theory.
Yeah.
Probably depends on who's winning the race.
Yeah.
Who are you guys voting for?
A stick.
Anyways, my numbers. I finally collected my last 2 rental checks.
Nice.
So $375 was my month's income. So I do not have any more rentals on the horizon. I don't know how that's going to really work with the whole new buyer broker thing. I'm going to have to get rental people to sign a buyer broker and they're going to have to pay me kind of thing. Because I don't really know if rentals are even going to offer a buyer broker kind of thing.
Which they did before, so it wouldn't surprise me if they still do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think most of them only did it because they had to in order to put it on the MLS, even if it was $1. But at that point, so who knows? But I mean, like if I do rentals, it'll probably be more at like a retainer fee, essentially, like $400 out the gate, which is paid right away. And then they have my full services for the next 3 months, which we'll see. I don't know. I'm going to play with it. I mean, I haven't had to use it yet, so I think I'll play with it because.
Which that goes back to what I mentioned last time in terms of, I feel like that's an example of, and it's on rentals, so it's not the best side to be doing on, but you're now having a value proposition that you can put towards the customer in terms of, here's $400, here's what it gets you.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be, you can base it off of the amount of showings you do, the amount of applications you help them write, or however you want to structure it. But now it's more of a value proposition rather than, all right, I'll help these people, but it is like you might not care as much about rentals because the dollar amount is almost like usually you're losing money.
Yeah, I think I think this the buyer sellers rentals. I think the quality of service for agents or for client from agents to clients will be higher.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll have to be, otherwise you're not going to make any money as an agent. So, but then also too, I kind of got 3 new. So Thad and I got a buyer under contract.
Nice.
Which is nice. And then I got both my listings under contract.
There you go.
They're all set to close at the end of September.
Nice.
So hopefully September will be. Oh, I mean, depends on if I get the check-in time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as I can get.
Great month.
What'd you say?
Or October is going to be a great month.
Yeah, exactly. Either or. Yeah, I'm either going to cash them all in on September, or wait to cash the checks until October.
Yeah.
You're at 48,000 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be able to just about how close would you be between the three of them?
Probably in the 90s.
Nice.
There we go.
So,
Nice. Cool. All right. What else you got?
that's all I got.
Action steps.
Yeah. No action steps. Last month, I wanted to get the newsletter jump started, which I would say 90% was done. Probably less because I didn't send it out. I still have to record the video. So like I've got the whole outline done, the video, the call to action, the links, so people can look my information up or click and go to my website to get a free, to sign up for the MLS, to get a free home valuation right away. Because we work with HomeBot now. So if they can HomeBot's like a service or whatever for sellers, so they can get like fast value on their home, which Thaddeus will need to talk about. I need to put your whole database in there too, who own a house, including the man to your right.
Sounds good.
It's a cool thing too because it has nothing to do with me. So it's not like you get spam mailed. You get like an email once a month saying, hey, the value of your home decreased or it increased, and then you can click the link or delete it. So
Yeah, I already get that from my the mortgage people I signed up with.
oh yeah, have you messed around in there?
Yeah, I've checked it out to see like the home valuation, all that kind of stuff. It's interesting.
Yeah. So like in 6 months or a year when you're interested, you'll look at it, and then other than that, you won't look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking to Heidi about that, and we had Heidi on the podcast back in January. But this was something she said that the amount of people that open those emails is an ungodly percent. It's like an 80 or 90% open rate for people when they're
that's so
sending those
high.
out. And so good email campaigns, you're at like 40 to 50%, and to be up like doubling that number is insane. But for the most part too, it's the big thing that differentiates it is it's a real thing that each person cares about their money in their house.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's cool features too to see how much money, equity in it, cash offer and stuff.
Hey, if someone is in Arizona and they were to watch the podcast, can you sign them up for HomeBot?
I can sign them up for anywhere in the United States. I've got family members in Illinois that are on it.
Okay. Is there a link that we could put in the description or something like that? Or should we just have them DM you like HomeBot or something?
I would say have them DM me, and then by next podcast, I'll have a link on my website.
Okay.
Because what you can do is essentially like I can have a landing page on my website, but it's also integrated with HomeBot. So when they click it, essentially goes to the HomeBot page saying "Sign me up now."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And if we can, we'll put that in the into the description next month. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So for now, you can just send me a message, and it's actually cool. They actually do kind of similar to what you're doing, Alex, as far as when you upload people, like when people sign up. Like they slowly send out everything, and then they kind of do that same thing every month when they send out things. So it's not like if you've got 400 people in there, they don't get it all on the first. Everybody's slow drip. I'm assuming it has something to do with what you're doing, and I think that's why they get such a high open rate too, is because that's not going to spam.
Yeah, it's a lot of work when you're doing email marketing to not go to spam. Yeah, so they clearly know what they're doing.
Well, that if you get an 80% open rate, you're probably not getting flagged by a server.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so why don't you just send me and Thad a bunch of emails like every day, and we'll just open the hell out of them. We'll get your
Start responding.
Well, it's funny that you say that. So with the email service that I use, called Instantly, they warm up your emails for you. So if it's a new domain and it's a new email, you got to warm it up anyways. And basically, they send all these emails around to other new emails, and they all have like a code in it, so you know that it's not a real email. But it's like they'll respond to a certain amount, they'll open all of them, all that kind of stuff, and it builds legitimacy before you actually send out any real emails. It's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, so that was last month. This month is, can you get the video recorded and send out the newsletter? So that'll be done. And then just staying with the whole time block with the lead follow-up, because that's working out really well. And then what I would like to have is have a kind of like my brain, I just brainstorm like what I want to do with the, because I feel like I'm touching, cold leads kind of thing. The newsletter is for like my sphere, plus we already do team like gifts and stuff like that. So I'm touching people I do know, and then now I kind of want to see how I can touch people that I don't know. So lead generation, and go with the free route with social media and YouTube. So kind of just by next month have a list of ideas of how I picture and how I want to do it. And then maybe even depending on how that goes, I might even have it up and running, but who knows?
Cool.
So
just an idea to throw out there is, if you are working on the HomeBot stuff, just take advantage of you working on that this next month. Make a YouTube video about that. And then that's something to send out to the sphere if you haven't done that already. And you're already going to be doing it. If you're putting something together for the podcast, and then you might as well just use it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, I know. I've got a bunch of different, because I think last week is kind of when I was doing the HomeBot stuff to my newsletter, and I was watching videos and going through. I was like, dude, there's so much crap you can do with it too. So like, exactly. Social media, YouTube, stuff like that. So
cool. Sweet.
Thaddeus, Klaus, what do you got in store?
We'll start with the industry info. We've got 2x4s at $365. That's the same. Plywood at $17.88. That's lower than what we've seen it for the last several months. We've been in the 20s. Copper $27.28. That's I think that's $2 cheaper actually as well. So we're seeing a little bit of a fluctuation in there. The price is for the 2x4s is up a little bit, but I'd say generally trending up, but nothing like we saw with the pandemic scarcity. So for this last month, to recap what we did numbers wise, I honestly didn't think I took in that much money this month. So I went into when I was going through to calculate it all up, I was very surprised. I was like, oh, okay. We put another 35,000 on this month. The thing that I'm trying to focus on is how do we keep this momentum going into Q4? Because obviously we had 4 projects just stacked right on top of each other, which was super nice. But for Q4, I've got quite a bit of open slots, and usually the fourth quarter doesn't fill up as much for construction on the residential side, just because people don't want their house torn apart through Thanksgiving, Christmas, all that stuff. So, but yeah, for right now, year to date, we're at 173,637. And the part that I was just kind of blown away by was like, I think in June, what was that? End of June, we hit the mark, and then like we're already rounding the corner to do it again. So I need to talk to my insurance people and make sure that everything is squared away. But yeah, in terms of the action steps, I made my list of 50 realtors to call, called them, had several people say, yeah, send it over. Feel like there's certain nuances that each time I'm still tweaking with it, even tweaking with how I'm leaving a voicemail for them. And then there was one guy in particular that he was really interested and said, "Hey, I'm out of town right now, but when my family and I get back, let's get together to sit down for a meeting." So I was like, "All right, yeah, absolutely." So I just keep being pleasantly surprised by it. The only thing that I am starting to pay attention to is that every once in a while it seems like I get someone excited about it, but I haven't seen a ton of leads come from it. I've got one agent in particular where she's been a great advocate for what we're doing. So that's been fantastic, but I just want to try and start like, all right, how do we get more of those? So, but for the next month, I'm going to try and do 75. And part of that is because the wife asked that I take a week off of work. And if I'm taking a week off of work, then yes, I'll be helping with the baby, but I'm sure that there's going to be plenty of time when the baby's sleeping. So I'm like, I can do some more calls and I can create a longer list. So, and then one of the things I want to talk about, and I don't think I talked about last month. If I have, you guys can tell me. But two of the big things that I keep revisiting are the products that we're providing for our clients, and then two is going to be the customer experience. So with each of those, just trying to think through on the production side, what are we doing with how we're communicating schedule to the clients, how we're and then also like how are we getting stuff done? What's the quality that we're putting out there? Are there things that we can even adjust in? And it's me. How can I adjust what we're doing to just elevate the product? So one of the things that we talked about last week privately was even understanding what a client wants. I told you guys that I had a follow-up meeting with a potential large client, and they had one of the things they were asking about was if we help them move their furniture out of the house. And I said, no, typically that's not something that we do, but here's a couple options in terms of staging your stuff. We can keep it protected, put it in the garage, all that stuff. And I noticed that came up 2 more times in the conversation. The big miss that I thought I had on that was not realizing that was a very big deal to them and not saying, yes, we have a way of doing that. So talking with Alex and Mason, found out that getting a pod and then hiring some movers would have been a very small fee for how big that job was. And if I had known that, I would have just pulled the trigger and said, absolutely, we have that. That's something we can offer for you. So that goes back to my product and customer experience. That one's obviously customer experience, but right up front to say, how do we make the residential remodel as comfortable in an uncomfortable situation? But the reason why I wanted to share that was just I'm trying to continually come back to those two things and revisit on different facets and look at what we're doing with remodels from different angles to try and see, I come in to do a job, but what am I missing from their perspective? So that's one of the small ones that I picked up, and my goal is to try and continue to share those as I start to notice them throughout our projects. Sweet. All right, I think we rolled through tonight actually pretty quickly. So we're probably right around 40 minutes in. I do have a company thoughts for tonight. So Mason, you want to stick around for it, or you got to bounce?
How long are you gonna take?
I did it 2 or 3 times today. I did it twice this morning. It was 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking like 7 or 8 if I do it right. So we'll move the camera. Usually we cut the camera, but I'll see if I can edit it.
Master editor.
Yeah. All right, guys. Tonight's company thoughts are going to be on the 4 buckets of business that I see. So we've got production, sales, admin, and then the executive. So the production side is really just doing the job. Sales, I call this sales and marketing. Obviously, those can get split. Telling people and convincing them to have you do the job. On the admin side, this is going to be the internal organization. And then the executive side, this is going to be looking for development or refinement inside the company. I've got both of these as blue, both of these as red, because I feel like they tie together. So the production, I feel like, or sales leans a lot more into production, in that if we're trying to tell someone and convince them that we're the right ones for the job, the way that we handle production, and this goes back to what we talked about just a minute ago in terms of the product and the customer experience, we're giving the sales department more ammo when we increase what we're doing on the production side in those two areas. So then it's sales then leans on production, and they have a responsibility to production to make sure that they're not overstating or overselling the capacity of what the company can do, or trying to fit something in that the company doesn't really handle. On the admin executive side, I look at it more as the admin side is going to be necessary for the executive side to understand what's happening as a whole, because that's going to be a lot more of your reporting, things like that. So when we look at these four categories, I look at them as being sequential in terms of what's necessary for a company. Because for production, if someone comes to me and asks me to do a job installing baseboard, I can go do the job. That's step one. And then the next step would be okay, now I can go tell someone that, hey, this is what we're doing. We're going to want to then start at a certain point tracking how much money are we making? Are we losing money? What are we doing in terms of taxes? All kinds of stuff like that. Once we have those three set up, then we can start to evaluate what we're doing inside of all of this together. I did a good job of taking probably this and applying it here and really ignoring this part. So that's what we've been focusing on. But where is it going? The reason why I want to kind of break this out is that as we bring people into the team, it's understanding where people fit into into the business, and understanding for us three where we're at right now. So kind of teasing next week, which we'll talk a little bit more about how we do the executive side when we're doing all four of these. But when someone comes into the company, it's going to be understanding that you're stepping into typically one of these three roles. And we had more of a focus on this last year with the video that we did, or the questions that we asked, and then we compiled it into a video that we released in December in terms of the path to becoming an executive. So would love for you guys to check that out. But it's also my perspective on this is that we can pull an executive from any of these three areas inside of the company, or a C-suite, I should say, from any of these three areas. But all of that involves the person being involved in their job, and then also being able to step to the side and look at it from a different point of view and problem solve. On the production side, if we're going to use our baseboard example, we've got a guy who understands how to run baseboard throughout an entire house. But if he can then step back and say, hey, the way that we're doing this, there's inefficiencies, so that if we coordinate, if there's two of us, hey, you're going to do this, this guy's going to do this. You're always cutting, I'm always nailing stuff in. We have a higher productivity. And then it's looking at what equipment do we have? What other options for trim work do we have? So now we're not just showing up, doing our job, stuck in this one lane. It's looking at it, like I said, from the side, problem solving, trying to look for development and refinement. And that's what we assigned to the executive side. That applies to both the sales and the admin as well. So as we have someone in the sales process, how can you look at it from the side in terms of here's what we're doing? This then usually that turns more into like a sales manager type role, but you get it, on and on. Same thing with the admin. So this is more for the way I started thinking about it with the four buckets was, where do people fit in? And then also, what does the growth looks like? And the growth to me looks like, how do you start looking at it from the side? How do you start problem solving to understand where you are inside of your bucket? What are the problems that you're encountering, or what's a constraint? And then sometimes it's even just, how do we become more efficient or better at what we're doing? Right now, like I said earlier, I'm focused on the production and the customer experience for the most part. So that's where my mind is always going in terms of what does that look like? How do we iterate it? All those things. So that would be my encouragement to anyone who steps into one of these 3 roles for any of our companies as we start to grow. 7 minutes.
Nice.
All right. You guys got anything?
I got 5 minutes and 53 seconds. Good job.
Nice. Mason, do you have any questions or thoughts?
No questions and no thoughts.
I mean, from my perspective, I agree with a majority of what you're saying. I think a lot of, especially as you go on with really large companies, the executive functions, and when you're doing all 4, it's really hard to always define a line. Sometimes there's a bit mix of both, but you notice, especially at really big companies like Starbucks, right? They just hired a brand new CEO because they have specific goals. They're like, all right, the CEO is now responsible for implementing these goals, however he does that. And then he's setting new goals for sales. He's trying to change up how the production is happening. He's working on the admin, all as a combined goal to get whatever new profit margin that they're trying to hit, or whatever overall arcing goal the company is trying to hit, usually directed by the board. So I 100% agree with the 4 quadrants, and it is really interesting how they kind of bleed into each other. I have seen, though, in unhealthy businesses, and again, this isn't every business, but sometimes sales and production aren't really talking. Sales is just focused on hitting their goals, and then they are over-promising, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Likewise, production has no awareness of what their actual spend is versus what was budgeted and that kind of stuff. And then admin is just grumbling the whole time, or executives are grumbling the whole time. It's like, dude, it's great work, but you're still way over budget. So, you're not getting on any of this stuff done. So it is really interesting to see what happens in a business when there isn't the coordination happening between the different groups.
Right. And so I think with that is you do have the admin side and the executive side. That's where they lean on each other to say, hey, we need to have some kind of communication between all 4 of these areas, because to your point, that can fall apart very quickly. I'll call him back in a second. I thought I got distracted. Stupid text messages. Anyways, but I feel like it's a good point in terms of that's how we want to be growing our companies to say, and I know specifically for me that it's like, I want my project leads, like, you need to understand budget. And that's gonna involve the admin side. It's that I want clear communication between sales and my project leads, because we want, if the customer experience and the product that we're providing are of the utmost importance for us getting the next job, then whatever their mouth says, we need to do perfectly.
Right.
So if they start selling something that we don't do, and they start going, hey, you guys dropped the ball, I lost the next job.
Yeah.
So you lost the next job. And that's where the issue is.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Robot.
That's what she said.
All right. Mason, where can they find you?
You can find me at Mason Oxendale on the IG. Hit me up for the HomeBot.
Cool.
I am the HomeBot.
You can find me on LinkedIn, Alex von Reich. Pretty sure I'm the only one with that name on there. So, just floating.
Yep.
And what about you? Where can they find you, Thaddeus?
At Cyto Building on Instagram, and then Cyto-Building is the website, and we should have all the contact stuff through there.
Okay. So until next time.
Hope your hammer stays accurate.
Your Wi-Fi fast.
And your work blessed.
See you, everybody.
It sounds like he's coughing.
I love how the robot's in the background now.
Oh, I know that was annoying.